What's up, guys? Welcome to the CR Podcast Late Night Edition. That stands for Crossroads Podcast.
What?
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Wow.
And it's probably not coming out late night. It's probably like just night.
You might be watching it at some time that's
early
not
morning.
night.
Exactly. Now everyone's everyone's sleep schedules are so thrown off because everyone's just staying up late, getting up early.
Yep.
The opposite of that, getting up late too. Whatever. I'm Andrew.
Sure.
Gabe.
Barrick.
Corbin.
And together, no, we're not going to do that. That was a disaster. But together we are
Gabe Andrew
Andrew
Corbin
Barrick.
Barrick.
Andrew Corbin.
Andrew Corb.
Yep, that's it. So if you
Okay.
have a better name of what we could be, post it in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
what is it?
terrible.
It's not a couple name. What would it be? A quad name?
Quad name.
Squad.
Quad.
It's a
Squad.
Squad.
It's a squad.
Squad.
Squad name.
That's it.
Squad.
So I'm excited because today we are actually going to be hearing a lot of Gabe's story, his testimony, which is going to be awesome. But before we do that, what we're going to do is hear a little bit from Corbin and Barrick.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have
Snap.
stories too. And so here's how this is going to work. You guys, starting with Corbin, you have to share the story of how you got from childhood to now in 60
Wow.
seconds.
Okay.
In 60 seconds, all right? But here's the catch.
Childhood to now.
Here's the catch. Every time, do you have an iPhone? I need a timer.
Yeah.
Here's the catch. Every time that I ding this bell, Gabe interrupts
Yes.
and he fills your life with a fact that's completely not true. And somehow you have to get back on track to your story,
Okay.
going off of what he said, and still get to where you are
Wow.
now in 60
It's just going to be a
seconds.
lot of moving around.
I have no idea how
It
this
is.
is going to go.
This is
I
not
just
going to
moved
go
from place to
anywhere for
place.
me. I didn't
That's
move
good.
very much.
This
All
is
right.
going to be amazing.
Wait,
you have to
so-
fill every fact, like dating life, like college life.
Oh, man.
everything.
All right. In
Wow.
60
60
seconds. This is
seconds,
going to be
all right?
insane.
So we're going
Wow.
to start with Corbin.
I don't know how to pace myself, but
I
we'll
don't
give it a
either.
shot.
All
I
right.
might
Oh,
talk
wait,
really quickly.
How long do I have to
Till I ring the bell.
Okay.
Infinite
Yeah.
time.
All right. Are you ready, Corbin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, childhood or infancy?
Infancy.
Oh, God.
Whatever you remember.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Oh, I have to remember it.
Here we go. Are you ready?
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow. So, okay, I was born in Wahiawa, Hawaii, and the first thing I remembered is my sister's 3rd birthday, and she had a Barbie cake.
And then what he didn't tell you is that he flew to Alaska, rode an elephant, came down from Canada, and became an American citizen.
Yep. We came back to America because my elephant, had a rabies shot, and we landed in Texas, which is where I moved after.
What he didn't tell you is that it wasn't Texas. It was Maine. And what happened in Maine was he started riding a pack of wolves, and he was raised by bears and gorillas.
Yeah, and then I moved back to Texas, and then from there I lived in Florida for a little while, and then jumped around to the Midwest, and then Japan for a little while, and now you don't get to hear
He
about
keeps
Japan.
lying. He never went to Texas. He was always in South Carolina the whole time. I lied to you, too.
Right, and then I was in high school in Maryland and went to college in Pennsylvania, and now I live in Maryland again, and I live in Westminster, and I'm married, and I have a dog, and I have a house, and there's no
Time.
more interruptions.
That's it. That's time. That
Oh,
was
wow.
pretty
Look
good,
at that.
Corbin.
Yeah, you got back on track
You
very
did.
well.
That was.
I
I
just
feel like it's a cop out to say, and then I flew back, like, because he's not actually explaining like
Yeah.
Oh, so true.
anything about what you
But
did.
that's okay.
I want to hear more
Yeah.
about the elephant.
Right.
All
I
right,
do want to
Barrick.
hear more about the elephant. Oh, gosh.
I'm so curious. This is going to be interesting.
I just tried to throw random things in there just to throw you off.
That's your whole job, though,
know.
Gabe. So good job.
That's true.
I'm proud
That
of
was
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Barrick,
Mm-hmm.
your life story in 60 seconds. Are you ready?
Yes.
Don't touch this again. all
Okay,
right?
I won't
Don't-
touch. I
okay.
won't touch the phone.
All right,
Can I
that's
ding?
cheating. You want to
May I
ding?
ding?
You can ding.
I would like to
All right,
ding.
Corbin's going to ding this
You have
round.
to. Yeah.
You have to put your mic up to it, though, so it actually
I
hears
will
the
ding
ding.
it.
Yeah.
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
All right, so I was born in the small town of Indianapolis, Indiana, which is far from here. It's the Midwest. There are mostly cornfields, but it's really a city. Anyway,
He has a little brother named Donnie. He came to about Texas about 3 years ago, and he was lost in an earthquake, and his
so my little brother named Donnie was lost after I was born. It was really strange how he's my little brother that was lost after I was born, but that's irrelevant. I had another brother that was born shortly after Donnie was lost forever. His name is Boaz. I know, weird name, right? And then I had another brother named...
another brother. I was trying to think of a funny name right off the bat. He had another brother named Christian, who the belt.
Named Christian, and then another one, Ezekiel, Boaz, Azariah, Ezra, lots of brothers. And I was homeschooled, and then I went to college, and now I'm here. Wow, in Maryland. How'd that
60
happen?
seconds time.
Wait,
Wow.
Is those really all your brothers' names?
I named
a
like
lot of brothers.
3
How
of
many
them.
brothers
I think.
do you
I
have?
have 5 brothers.
Oh wow, what are
Wow.
Wow.
they? Barak and what else?
So Barak, Boaz, Ezekiel, Azariah, Ezra, and Zadok.
Wow.
cool.
I know.
Sometimes you'll just mention like
You
my
guys
I
all
need
look
to just
alike.
start lying about those names and make them crazier every time, but I never have lied about
how?
them once.
How do you make them crazier?
Zadok? Methuselah.
Methuselah.
No, Zadok is so.
Zadok is out there.
It's out there, yeah.
But then
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, Mephibosheth,
Ishbabinab,
Come here, Deck Tech.
Wishbone.
Wishbone. No, that's a dog. Welcome to this segment. If Barak had a sister.
And a little brother named
Wow.
Donnie.
All
Her
right.
name
Well,
would have been something like Delilah or
Delilah.
something.
Ooh,
That would have been interesting.
that would have been interesting. Right now, we're gonna go ahead and have a word from our fantastic sponsor. We'll be right back.
Present some ideas that I've had for you guys for a while. So this is actually something that I think is a revolutionary idea that will revolutionize the way that we do bathrooms. See, in any bathroom scenario, the average person experiences at least 2 problems. Some people experience more, if you catch my drift. But for me, I have 2 reoccurring problems. 1, a clogged toilet, and 2, flies are everywhere because that's where they like to hang out. And so I actually developed something that I like to call the Splot Plunge. The Splot Plunge. As you can see, it's equal parts a plunger and a fly swatter. And so what that enables the user to do is go from 1 second to the next, plunging the toilet at your friend's house, at your house, on vacation, anywhere. And then in the very next moment, swatting flies away. Sometimes even at the same time. And the beauty of the Spot Plunge is that you can actually customize this. Colors, design. I have the hand, but you can have a flower. Heck, you could even turn your fly swat into a lamp, or a centerpiece, or in a pinch, a bowl. This is a versatile instrument that will revolutionize your bathroom experience going forward. I would hope that today you would sponsor me, support me, and be able to fund this amazing idea. I want one of these, or 10 of these, in every house in the United States of America. I hope to see you on the other side.
And we are back. Thank you so much.
I love plungers.
Plungers are amazing. And
Yes.
fly spots.
Yes, for the low price of $19.99.
Yes.
Wait, really?
You pay me, and I will make sure you get it by the end of 2032.
2032.
2032. We have to make them right now.
Resale them.
Yeah, resale them.
We're out of stock right now due to everything that's going on.
Exactly. With all the toilet paper comes plungers, and so we've run out a lot very
Run
fast.
out quickly.
So, all right, right now, what we want to do is go ahead and transition into a little bit more of a serious time. This is my friend Gabe, and Gabe helps out in Eldersburg a lot. He's awesome, and we're really happy to have him, and we're really thankful that he can just come on and share his story. And so I just want to say this going into it, as we have Gabe talking about how he grew up and everything that led him to Christ. If you guys have questions for Gabe and you just want to know more about his story or how he dealt with certain issues in his life, send him a message. Send us a message. Let us know, because we want to be there for you guys, even though we can't meet necessarily because of all these crazy bans with groups and stuff. We can't meet, but we still want to be in community. And so send us messages. Let us know. And maybe you have a question about something that has nothing to do with Gabe or any of us, and you just want us to cover a topic and talk about it. We want to know that too. And so with that being said, Gabe, I want to turn things over to you. Let's start simple. So you grew up in Chicago. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yes. Technically, I mean, I always kind of just tell people I grew up in Chicago, but really I'm from Aurora, Illinois. I just say Chicago because nobody knows where that is. So, but it's pretty close to Chicago. But
So you lied.
yeah,
basically.
I lied about my whole life.
Already, this
Everything.
has begun
I'm
with a
a
lie.
liar.
Very
But,
quickly.
growing up, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, at first, I think things really spiraled out of control when my father left my life around like my last memory of him was 7, 8 years old. So not having a father really impacted me a lot. For many different reasons, because a lot of people, that was kind of like the trend in my family. Men in my family were always really either, I had a lot of uncles that were addicted to alcohol, cousins that were addicted to drugs. So all the men I ever saw in my life always had something that was attached to them that wasn't healthy. You know what I mean? Like most men never led a healthy lifestyle that I saw. So growing up, that's all I knew was, okay, alcohol, drugs, gangs, that's all, I used to see a lot of things, especially like with my mother and her relationships, with my two brothers' father, abuse and things of that matter. And so I would say from the age of about 7 to 11, that's really what I dealt with a lot, was just seeing my mother get abused all the time, men always walking in and out of my life, and never really having a solid male role model to show me and teach me how to be a man. You know what I mean? So that led to that. I never blame my father. One thing I always say is I never blame my father for the decisions I made, because I had a choice. I could have chose to be different and take a different route, but I felt at the time that I was looking for love, and I went looking for love in the wrong places. So that led to me, at first, I think I was 11 years old. I started smoking weed. I was in 6th grade. At first it was harmless. It was harmless. It was just, let's have fun, whatever, with my friends, whatever. And then slowly but surely that just grew into me starting to every day, get high. It was more so turned into not being for fun, but more of a necessity, because I felt like I didn't know who I was without it. And if I didn't have it, I was angry or I would get frustrated. And so I started acting out in school, and I started getting, my grades started going down. And, my mother was stressed out because she was trying to raise 4 kids by herself and work 9 to 10 hours a day and provide for us, each and every day. So, and that also, another thing that stemmed for that is me having her working so many hours trying to provide for 4 children. I had to be the grown up in the house and watch over my siblings. So that took a toll on me too, because I had to be a parent way before I wanted to be. You know what I mean? And but I, to this day, I always thank my mother, because at the end of the day, she showed me that I can be a father now, because I understand what it takes from that. With my daughter, I understand what it takes to raise her the right way, correctly. So, I mean, that from about I was probably 11 to 13. That was pretty much my life. Getting high every day, getting in trouble in school. It was small things at first. Most people think that like, he just jumped off the deep end right away. No, this all was slowly led up to, small little things that I did, okay, like smoking weed in school, getting high before school, going in school, smelling like weed. Then eventually I got expelled from school, right? So
13, you're saying 13 is when everything changed for better or worse?
For worse.
Okay.
13, I feel like everything changed for, it wasn't like the complete jump off the cliff moment for me, which I'll get to in a little bit, but that was more of a turning point for me when I was probably like 13, 14. I got kicked out of 8th grade. I got expelled, and I had to go to alternative school. And that was something that changed me, because I felt like I was cool, because I was that kid. Everybody was like, oh, he smokes weed, whatever. I was ahead of everybody, because I was doing things that most high schoolers were doing. Most 12th graders were doing, and I was in 8th grade. I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing yet. I was ahead of my time, and so I felt like, I had this chip on my shoulder. I was this guy, but, not realizing that all of that was just God setting me up for the promises that he had for me in my life. Going through the whole process of these things, led me to the promise that he had for me. So I was in 9th grade. I got back into regular high school, West Aurora High School. I was good then. You know, I don't think ninth grade. I can't remember anything that really huge really happened to me. You know, that went really bad. I can't really remember anything. But when I moved from the west side of Aurora, Illinois, to the east side, that's when I jumped off the deep end because. You know, being if you're from Aurora, and if you know, I don't know who will watch this, but you know, where I'm from, there's a good side. You know, it's almost like every you know big city. You know, that you have a decent side and you have a really bad side. So the east side was more of the you know gang central. You know, you had a lot more gangs and everything over there was a lot worse. And so I got into East Aurora High School and I started hanging around the wrong crowd and. Making just terrible decisions in my life, man. Just terrible decisions, you know, hanging out with people and feeling the need to be loved because my mother wasn't showing it to me in the way that I thought she should. You know what I mean? I thought she should be showing me affection and hugging me and telling me that she loves me and giving me a pat on the back saying you're doing a great job. When, you know, I was just young and I didn't realize that her love language was putting clothes on my back, food in my stomach, and trying to provide for not just me, but for my 3 other siblings. And, you know, the world didn't just revolve around me, myself, and I. So, you know, and me being the oldest now, I see, like, man, you know, I had to step up, but nobody ever showed me how to step up like that and be a man, you know, and do what I needed to do to help my mother. So I was probably 15 years. I was 15 years old when I joined the gang. And that you know, my relationships with my family just went rock bottom. You know, my grandma, you know, she didn't want to talk to me. My uncles, my mom despised me, you know, and I don't blame her because of the things I was doing. You know, I was doing some terrible things, you know, and that led to me, you know, the drugs, you know, getting high. And I always say, you know, it stems from getting smoking weed. You know, it was something as little as that, as you know, something as small as smoking weed. It seems so harmless, but yet it was that little decision in my life that I made that trickled, you know, that sent the ripple effect of all the bad decisions in my life. You know, because then it led to cocaine. You know, especially when I joined the gang, because once I joined the gang, it was more available to me. Everything, you know, drugs, you know, alcohol, whatever it is. Money, you know, girls, whatever it was, you know, it was more available. So I just latched onto it because I felt like this is what makes you a man. This is what makes you the guy that everybody looks up to. This is where you get love from. If the more you have of these things, the more people are gonna love you. And like I said, I was looking for love in the wrong places, and I didn't realize that because, you know, nobody ever took the time to actually sit me down and you know, grab me and say, you know what, I love you, and this is what love really looks like. But yet again, you know, that's still what, you know, God was still grooming me for a season and giving me a purpose in my life, you know. So being in the gang, you know, I saw a lot of crazy things, you know. Obviously, you know, I went to jail. 16 on my 16th birthday, I went to jail.
So you were only 16 at this point.
I was 16. I was only 16 years old.
Wow.
I was 15 years old when I had my first gun. You know, guns, drugs, everything. 15 years old in my grandma's house, you know, in my room, you know, having all this stuff. And I didn't care, man. I just didn't care. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. You know, I never understood. Like, now that I look back, it's almost like cringy. You know, like, man, why would I do that? You know, like, you think, man, you got to think. But that's just the wisdom I have now. It's like, you know, because I'm not thinking just about myself anymore. I'm thinking about how my grandmother feels. I'm thinking about how my mom feels about a decision that I make now. You know, I'm thinking about how the decision I make right now affects my little sister or my little brother or my daughter, or, you know, or my uncle or my cousin. Like,
So from like what you're saying right now, like you're just thinking differently. What changed between 15-year-old Gabe to, you know, 21-year-old Gabe?
16-year-old Gabe, you know, went to jail. Obviously, I faced 45 to 85 years minimum in prison. No chance of parole, no chance of early release. You know, when I say that, you know, I usually gloss over that real quick when I say that. But if you really, 45 years at 16 years old minimum, I'm getting out when I'm 65, 70 years old. You know what I mean?
It's a life sentence.
Everybody
really.
I know, and that's if I get the minimum, and everybody in my head, all I was thinking at that point was, if I get out by then, everybody I know is gonna be dead. My mom, my aunts and uncles, grandma, they're all gonna be dead. And everybody will have passed on in life. By that time, I'll probably be incarcerated, end up dead, doing drugs, or just back in prison after that point. But that's when I wouldn't say I devoted myself to God. I would say it was more of a foxhole prayer. But my aunt and my uncle, God bless them, man. They used to come visit me every Wednesday while I was in jail. They're members of the clergy, so obviously they let them come in every Wednesday, speak to me, whatever, and they would read me the word, and we would pray. And slowly after a while it started to manifest in my life, and I actually started to take what they were telling me seriously. And I remember the day I was in jail. I was probably like 15. I was 14 months in on a year and a half that I stayed there, so I probably had a couple more months before everything came to fruition, and I was released, obviously. But I just remember I was in my cell, and it was late at night, and I always had nights like where I couldn't sleep, because just like the anticipation of what was coming. And I always think about how in the Bible, Jesus, when he was in the garden and he was telling his disciples to pray, can you not stay up an hour and pray with me? The anticipation, the worry that he had in his heart of him just, telling God, like, what, if you just take this cup from me if you can. And that was kind of like what I experienced in my room that this night when, I just got on my knees and I told God, if this is what you want for the rest of my life, if you want me in prison for the rest of my life and this is where you want to use me, then so be it.
So it sounds like in that moment, Jesus' story, the story of God, really was made real in your life. And how has that played out since?
So since then, obviously I got out.
How'd that happen?
Technicality. Technicality, man. I'm telling you, the court system is something, and but I tell you, God is just bigger than everything, man. I never foresaw it, because it's always, I was so, I wouldn't say like I was a Christian. I don't say, that's when I gave my life to God, because I really didn't. But yet God still showed me the grace and the mercy to produce a miracle in my life, not only to bless me, but to bless other people around me and my family who probably weren't believing. You know what I mean? So it not only just blessed me, and it was a huge blessing to me, but what it did in the lives of people around me, you couldn't put a price on that. You know what I mean? So that's what I thank God for the most, today. But I mean, eventually, I got out, and at first I was going to church, and I remember the first time I was in church, they wanted me to give my testimony, and I went up, and no words would come out. I couldn't talk. I was shaking. I was trembling. I was nervous. And I look back on it now, and I realize that I was not ready yet. When I think about God and being a potter, he pulled me out of the oven, but I wasn't firm enough yet, so he threw me back in. You know what I mean? I wasn't done cooking yet. So when I look back and I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's what happened, because I was shaking like a baby. I couldn't talk. And now, so after that, I went on and I started thinking, I can do this. I'm all right. I don't need to go to church every Sunday. And slowly but surely, I stopped going to church and stopped praying. And all in all, I stopped talking to God. So I took back everything that he gave to me. I said, you know what? I got the wheel now. I'm good. Thank you. I'll see you later. It was one of those things, like, I'll see you later. And after that, man, that was probably 2000. I got out August of 2016. That was probably 2017. I went a good year out of jail without getting into any trouble, being surrounded with family and just enjoying what, God had gave to me. And then I decided just to take it all back, And I had my daughter, July 22nd, 2017. Big moment in my life. But at that time, I I wasn't right. You know, I think I was
Mhm.
back doing drugs by then. I was doing cocaine and getting high again, getting drunk every weekend.
Mhm.
No, I was working, but I was functioning. You know,
Yeah.
I was barely functioning. You know, and I was doing barely enough to scrape by for everybody to be like, he's fine. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's the people that are closest to you that often deny what they see in your life because they don't want to deal with it and they don't want to feel the pain of going through what they went through again, so they just leave it alone. You know what I mean? I see that a lot in, like, you know, my closest family, and eventually I ended up hanging out back with certain people I shouldn't have been. Ended up back in the gangs, back in the streets. So then we moved from where I was living in Aurora. We moved out to DeKalb, Illinois. Then man, it was just such a toxic environment. It just made everything worse. I was getting arrested a lot, and eventually my mother lost that apartment that we were living in. And this is kind of where I'm at now in my life. Everything starts to really come together, and God really starts to pull, you know, his rabbit out the hat for me. And I end up homeless, right? I have nowhere to go. My mother says, look, find somewhere to go. I can't help you. I'm going to your aunt's house. And at this time, nobody in my family was talking to me because of the way I was leading my life. And you know, I would ask certain family members, you know, can I sleep in your house for the night, you know, just for the one night? And they would look at me and say, no, you can't, and they would turn me away. And so this led to me sleeping on a park bench. And I mean, not every night I slept outside, but you know, most nights I did. And the thing that crushed me the most was having to call my grandmother and ask her if I could sleep in the back seat of her car. You know, and because she was living with my uncle, and he didn't want me in the house. So I would have to sneak into the back seat of her car in front of his house and sleep there. And she would come out, bring me pillows and stuff, and she would just look at me and she would just cry. You know, she would come out crying, and I would just look at her, but something in me, man, didn't care. I just wasn't there yet. You know, I didn't understand, you know, the severity of what was going on. And in the midst of all being homeless, you know, I was addicted to drugs. And, you know, I had several, you know, in 2000, that was 2018. 2018 alone, I had 5-6 friends get shot and killed, you know, to gang violence. I had a couple others overdose, you know. And it was just so much death and so much just negativity and just so much evil that was just surrounding me in my life. It was like a blanket over me, and I couldn't take it. You know, I just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And I told God one day, I said, Lord, I know I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I just need you to open a door, and I'll run through it. You know, and it's almost like, and I remember over the period of time, you know, I did that a couple times where I'm, you know, God, I'm tired of this. And I just always imagined God looking at me. The couple times before that, I said it, he's just looking at me like, he didn't mean that. You know, you're not ready. And then eventually, that one night when I was walking back to that same bench that I slept on, you know, and he walked up, and I was walking up, and I just looked up, and I'm drunk, and I'm tired, and I'm just cold, and I just tell God, like, I'm done. I don't know what else you want me to do. And then I just always imagine him looking at me and like, now you meant it. And the next day, I remember I woke up that next morning, and I had a phone call from my aunt who hadn't talked to me in like months. And I would text her and say, you know, I need help, you know, and she wouldn't reply. And she said, you know, come. So I went, and, you know, I told her, like, I need help. I want to change. I want to do this and do that with my life, you know, and, you know, I don't want to die, and, you know, all these things, you know, and just pouring my heart out to her because, you know, I felt like everybody had stepped on me and stepped over me and stepped around me, and people were just, you know, not seeing me for who I was, and people were just, you know, I was like invisible. And, you know, you know, that's another thing that I testify to God is because now through my whole testimony, I can walk up to a homeless person and I can have that empathy with them and empathize with them on how they feel, because being homeless is like really being invisible. You know what I mean? It's so many homeless people that you walk by that people, you know, you just don't see them. and they just feel so invisible. And that's how I felt to my own family, my own flesh and blood, who I knew my whole life. I just felt so invisible, like nobody knew who I was, you know, like nobody cared about me. And, you know, but God used that. You know, God used, what the enemy intended for evil, and he flipped it, and he used it to produce a purpose in my life.
Thank you guys for watching so much. We appreciate it. We got to wrap up because we are definitely pushing the time. So if you have any more questions about Gabe's story and what he talked about, or other questions for any of us or any of your leaders, just let us know, because right now Corona is making it really difficult to have community, but technology makes it really easy. And so we want you to be able to leverage that and ask us your questions so we can have conversations about them, or maybe even talk about them on the Crossroads podcast. And so send us your questions, comments. Let us know you're thinking about us, because we're thinking about you. We miss you guys a lot, and we are all counting down the minutes till we can finally hang out again. So until then, see you guys later.
Bye.